Welcome to another LinkedIn Sites. I'm Jeffrey Klein, and I am happy as always with the people that agree to come and share their time and knowledge with me. And today is no exception. We have Russel Dubree, who I would love to start off with you telling us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Jeffrey. Yes, thank you for having me on. Excited to be here. I nuts the net short of it. I'm a business coach for agency owners and basically just help agency owners grow their business to whatever that is and their own individual goals.
So, as an agency owner, I'm curious. I have lots of problems. What do you think is the main problem that you're solving for us folks who don't know what we're doing?
So pretty much all my clients start out with, and their main challenge is sales and kind of where do they get their next client from. Many agencies have they've lived by the referral for so long, and we know that comes and goes, and you never quite know where your next lead is coming from. So it's really setting up positioning and certain specific tactics that are one can happen consistently, but ultimately that kind of moves them beyond the referrals. I'd like to talk to it.
Yeah, I think that's it's also the thing too, when you're having work, you don't think about what's going to happen when that work stops, and then you have that period, that kind of peaks and valleys, and I think sometimes people forget to have a pipeline so that when you're working on something and it stops, that you don't just have nothing.
Yeah, exactly. All about pipeline building. Turn it into a numbers game that you can control.
I love that. And you said agencies. Now, there's a whole range of what that can mean. What's sort of the ideal? Is there a size or a geography or anything that's kind of ideal for the people you help?
So luckily, especially in today's remote world, they can be all over the place. I'd be curious if I'd attempt something outside of North America at least, but beyond that, can be certainly any agency. And then typically, what's been a good client of mine, given the challenges that I've come adept at help solving, is usually going to be a sub 25, 20 employees or something along those lines, and ultimately they've hit a wall maybe, or they just know they've got bigger goals that they want the extra help to get to. And then something I'm also working on in the background is I found that one-to-one isn't the greatest for larger agencies, but working on kind of a mastermind like construct to get faster, more rapid growth, or larger agencies to get together and collaborate on the different challenges and things that they're trying to solve.
Several heads are better than one. I think I feel like that, and I've been in a few masterminds, and it's great because someone else brings in a perspective that you didn't consider, and it can be really helpful. I didn't think of that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what people, I think they end up really enjoying that, because especially when you get to a bigger size, the problems are a lot more nuanced. It takes a lot more creativity and innovation, and where that group construct, I think, really does come in a lot better.
I like podcasts and books, business books. Can you name either a book or podcast that you think is worth the time in either reading or listening to?
Absolutely. As you can see behind me, I am also a big fan of books, and people always ask. I haven't read all these because some of these are my daughter's and my wife's books, but I have read every book that's on my particular shelf. And so I think, especially for agency owners, and I think just a lot of people the title will kind of give it away in this particular space, but the business of expertise, kind of subject matter expertise, kind of consultants, by David Baker. He's kind of considered, I don't know if there's a godfather of marketing agency guru content, but if I had to name one, I think he probably would fit that. And similarly, he actually has a really great podcast called Two Bobs that he's on with Blair Enns, which is another well-known agency guru that wrote How to Win Without Pitching. So there you go.
It's funny. I think we should all aspire to be marketing agency gurus or something. A guru is. I have to understand what the proper definition of a guru and how you usually it's bestowed upon you. Like he's a
Right.
guru.
Yeah. He doesn't label himself that. There we go. I've bestowed it upon him.
We're going live on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's kind of my favorite platform. Can you name a LinkedIn connection that you're glad you have?
I mean, I don't want to offend anybody by just naming one, because
I understand that the shout out could be challenging, but one or
Yeah.
two is fine.
Yeah. No, no. I'll limit to one for, and I got a very good reason. But and like maybe a lot of folks, when I first got on LinkedIn, I was just connected to everybody. And over the last several years, where it's no, we have to know each other, we have to have a connection. But one name particular comes to mind. It's not because we're particularly close, but I think he's mastered the concept of kind of the loose connection and using LinkedIn to connect people together, kind of that loose tie association. And his name is Joe Santaloria, and just someone I met a few years ago, and he was just kind of, it was a very quick meeting. He's like, look at my LinkedIn profile, tell me who you want to know. I'm going to look at your LinkedIn profile, tell me who you want to know. And that was probably about 2 years ago, and we've over the years just sent each other several connections, just because he sticks in my mind for the very particular thing he's looking for, and likewise I stick in his mind for the particular thing of folks he comes
And
across. So
that's yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in that your network and your relationships is everything, and there's a whole variety of them. Some people that's just like that. I talk about people that I'm not friends, I'm friendly. And
yes,
so I think in the business context, it's good to have lots of people who kind of, and one of the things you said was about understanding that when they think of something, they think of you, so the thing that you are a guru in. And so I think that's really important for people to recognize, like, you want to get known for one thing so that people, when they think of that thing, think of you.
exactly.
So that's really important. So I am, especially at the moment, obsessed with kind of content marketing. I'm writing this book, The Content Beast, which is coming soon. So what is your favorite type of content to consume from brands?
So my favorite, I think, is where you get to take a peek behind the curtain, and not anything particularly beyond that, of just when someone just kind of shares their journey, and in a real, just genuine, practical way, not even in trying to talk themselves up, but they're just, hey, this is a day in the life, or this is what happened. There's the blogs that I've followed over the years just do a really good job of just bringing along for the ride, and so I think that's typically what I like for content.
There's a connection of mine who's I'm friendly with, named Ramon Ray, and he does a lot of these. He's doing his workout, and he goes and shares what's on his mind and shares what's going on, and good and bad. And I think I think the key there is it has to be genuine, and I think there's a tendency in social generally to show your best self.
Oh yeah,
and I keep telling people, like, that's great, but that's not what people really want. They want to know the real you, the real company, and nothing's ever as, polished and shiny as we think it is. And people learn from, if I'm having a struggle and I share about it, then someone else may learn because they're having the same struggle. And so I'm a big fan of, I produce video, and I said there are times for the polished video, but there's, great opportunity to just share what's going on. And Gary Vaynerchuk, and I share this with people a lot, it's like, don't try and produce content, just document what you're doing. And I love that concept of just like, whatever's going on in your life, that's what you can share, and the journey of what's going on.
Turn on the camera, turn on the mic. Yeah, I mean, and I'm to the same note. I mean, I'm not great at social media, if I'm being honest. It's just never been something I've gotten too in depth in. But I tell everybody, right, my success is not because of all my wins. It's because of my insane amount of failures and doing things horribly wrong. But then eventually finding some things to do right. So I do think that is just as important to see where things went wrong, not even, maybe even more so than where things went right.
Yeah, and I love the expression, you either win or you learn.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, but I really agree that's the growth comes from when things go wrong, not when everything's going swimming. So what's your favorite, you said you're not great. What's your favorite kind of content to produce, to create?
Gosh. Well, that's a tough one. I really, I can't even say I'm great at this, but it is my favorite to produce is story. I think, I have the podcast that you've at least produced a show that will get released here soon, called An Agency Story. And all I'm trying to do with that is share a story about someone else that's in the same space. And that hopefully just through that story, one, you find out you're not you're not alone, and in fact, you might not even be that different. I don't know. Some people might hope they're that different, but in the reality, it's a lot of similar type stories, and that you through that story you learn a little bit about something interesting someone did, or get inspired by something that they've done that you could use in your own business, or you just heard a good story, and that'll work too.
You're preaching to the choir there. I'm story is start and finish of my belief system in terms of what you should be doing in life, whether it's business or general. That's how we connect, and it's powerful. And you can have stories that bring value in some way, whether it doesn't have to necessarily be, oh, this is a story that's going to teach you this, this, and this. It can simply be a matter of entertainment. Of course, my favorite is what I call edutainment. So you kind of do both.
Edutainment.
Kind of, yeah, you get to kind of share something of value, but you do it in a fun and narrative way. And I think that's what the best kind of content that people try and
Yeah,
create.
I mean, we're still like the kids in us, where if they learn something and they didn't know what they were in the process of learning, that is like the ultimate win of content, of teaching, of coaching, of anything like that. Like, how do you obfuscate that dirty word of learning sometimes? Um,
Yeah, it's funny. I try and I have three children, and I hope they see that I'm a lifelong learner, and I was to me that stay curious piece is super important. Otherwise life's kind of boring if you're just like stuck and static. So for me, hearing stories from lots of other people that I can learn from is what makes getting up every day worthwhile.
right on.
Um, Speaking of which, but with that, do you find is kind of the biggest challenge in creating consistent and valuable content?
I think one of the things I'm kind of looking at right now is I've had a very consistent format in terms of how I produce and get a show. And what I don't know, and what I'm trying to kind of ask myself is, does that have to evolve? It's the same way you look at a television show, and it's like double-edged sword. Is sometimes they evolve to the better, and sometimes you're like, I wish it would just go back to the way it once was. I think a clear show. I watched the documentary recently about American Gladiators, and I was like, man, that was such a great show back in the early 90s or whatever. And then they did a reboot, I think about, I don't know, 10 or so years ago, and it was just horrible, absolutely horrible. I was like, just go back to what worked. And so I don't ever know that exact right answer of what is good evolution and what is just evolution because you need to make you feel better. That's always a tough question to answer, I feel like.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance between, sticking with what works and then finding ways to mix it up enough to make it different and interesting. Yeah. And I have that experience a lot with yeah, I think TVs, where you had a favorite show and they decide to do something different, or they kill off your favorite character, or they do things you're like, no, it's not the way I wanted it to be.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but I think it's with content, it is similar when you're promoting your business. You want to be consistent about what it is you do and the value you give and all of that. But at some point, you also want to mix it up enough that people are not like, oh, it's the same thing. Let me just gloss over it. So it's definitely, yeah, that is a challenge, but I think it's one you got to keep it fresh while keeping consistent in the value and the message that you're sharing.
Yeah.
So
It
that's
just spurred a thought. I think like some of the best shows I think are out there, and this is even like a aha moment for me as you're kind of talking through that they wrote the show with the end in mind. They just didn't write ones. I think a lot of the bad shows end up being where they write a season and they wait to see if they're going to get another one, and they write that season, and then they just end up all over the place. Which is why, like, I think Breaking Bad is a great example of the entire show was, you knew, or the writers at least knew where that was evolving to, and it had it's fine. It's in state, and they didn't try to go beyond that. But now I'm gonna have to now I'm gonna have to think about this more.
it's funny because I'm watching Better Call Saul now, and then
Oh
learning
yes.
so a lot of people have seen it. I'm like, I don't want to know how it's going to end. Don't tell me. So
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see how that goes.
that was a great show
Um,
too.
my final question for you, which is a little outside the box, I guess, is can you name I'll say rather than your favorite, a favorite animated character? Since I produce animation, I'm always curious in the pantheon of animation, of which there's so many wonderful characters. Can you name one that you really like?
Man, Jeffrey, I was stayed up all night last night thinking about this. I knew this was going to be a question. I just didn't want to get this one wrong, but
No
You know,
wrong
after
answers.
after thinking a lot about it, I just don't think I can get past the genie from Aladdin. Not only was just an absolute masterful performance from Robin Williams, but you just got to love the character outright in terms of positivity and the whole story. So I'm gonna go with the genie from Aladdin.
I'm a big fan, and I think yeah, Robin Williams just made it incredible. But and the animation itself, the marriage they did was really cool because I know Robin Williams likes to go and improv a lot of stuff, so they had to.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did, and backwards and forwards with that, but yeah, and I think again he's got a yeah, a good heart, and I think that comes through, and yeah, so that's a great choice. It's the perfect choice for you, Russell.
I
So
can't imagine how hard that is in an animation sense, right? Like, cause right, everything has to kind of match up. Cause I recently watched Mrs. Doubtfire too, and they were just talking about like the entire filming process took so much longer because they would just turn the camera on and let Robin Williams just go to town, and they were just gonna, take out whatever the best pieces were, and so like, yeah, I can't imagine that world from an animation sense.
yeah, he's such a rare talent. It's kind of sad that he's
It
gone,
is.
but
It
thankfully we
is.
have his wonderful work.
We got lots to remember him
Well,
by.
Russell, I want to thank you so much for giving me the time and sharing your thoughts on these things, and just being open and genuine and sharing your thoughts. So thanks so much, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me on the show. Congrats on the book. Excited for you and excited to get that out there. Can't You sent me a copy the other day. I can't wait to sit down and read it, and look forward to seeing how that goes for you.
Thanks so much, Russell. Take care.
You too.